All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Glad you could join me here today on the Cabral Concept. Today, we're going to be going over all things lipedema, sometimes called lipedema, and what we can do to improve it, if not completely reverse it. Yes, that is something that we see in our practice all of the time. And either way, we're going to be able to help you with this. Here's the nice thing. If you've ever struggled with literally losing body fat or toning up, and I'm putting that in air quotes, your lower body, especially your hips and thighs, this is the show for you, because what I want to do is explain why calorie deprivation, so less calories and more exercise, is not going to be the answer to lipedema. And again, you can pronounce it lipedema if you'd like. I'm going to say lipedema. So what I want to share with you is first what it is. So lipedema itself is not all fat. It's not just all about accumulating fat in typically the thighs and hips, but sometimes it can actually affect a little bit around the midsection and the arms as well. It's just more common in the front of the thighs and the hips in general, and mainly affects women more than men. So what I like to say is that it's not just fat accumulation, but actually a tissue connectivity-based disorder, or probably more appropriately put, a connective tissue disorder. So there's an actual issue with the fascia itself, and we're going to be talking about that as well. So I already shared that it disproportionately affects the lower body, which is why many women and some men are trying to out-exercise this particular issue, and it is not going to work. So that's the nice thing. This isn't about willpower. This isn't about trudging through. This is a more holistic look at why did it occur in the first place, because if we can find the underlying root causes, we can begin to work backwards to reverse this dis-ease of the body. So no, it's not a diagnosable disease, although you can say you have lipedema. What is, and eventually it can become, is something called lymphedema. I have a bunch of podcasts on that explaining the difference between cellulite, lipedema, and lymphedema. Lymphedema is actually a medical-based condition. We certainly don't want it to progress to that, and hopefully that doesn't happen to you. Either way, we're going to tackle it here today. But lipedema, different than lymphedema, is a symmetrical fat accumulation. So typically, both legs look fairly the same, pretty close. Not one leg looking like it's maybe 15 pounds larger, meaning of body fat, than the other leg. That actually starts to then move towards lymphedema. But it can be painful or tender to the touch. And you can bruise easily, sometimes in this area because of the poor connective tissue. And it can also be, as I shared, resistant to weight loss in terms of dieting and exercise. So not the same as obesity and not the same as lymphedema. What are the drivers of lipedema? All right, number one is this, hormonal influence, and that is why it affects women the most. We will typically sometimes see it during puberty in teenage girls. Oftentimes during pregnancy, it will begin to, I don't know if flare up is the right word, but it will begin to become more apparent, and then during menopause. Typically during those times, we are seeing changes in one particular hormone called estrogen. So estrogen seems to be more of the causal factor as to why lipedema appears mainly in women than men. We do know that men have estrogen. It's just the amount they produce is going to be less. It's typically circulated and moved out of the body a little bit quicker. And it's often fluctuating based on their levels of testosterone. Higher levels of testosterone eventually convert a little bit more to estrogen, but also there are other factors in the body as well. Some of them actually we're going to talk about next that affect men as well. So it's an important one to absolutely keep in mind. So what we like to do is we run a lab test called the stress mood and metabolism test, and we start to look at cortisol and a few other things and how it might actually affect estrogen levels and drop progesterone, which makes this situation that much worse. If you're dealing with cellulite or lipedema, which is another and greater level to cellulite, you definitely want to run the stress mood and metabolism test, because it's going to look at your thyroid levels, cortisol levels, testosterone, DHEA, progesterone, estrogen. It's going to give you the whole gambit of what to look for. Super important. Okay. Number two, so a second root causal factor is the lymphatic dysfunction. In almost all cases, so the lymphatic system, if you're not familiar, it's actually more fluid in your body than your blood. And what it does is it bathes all of your tissues and cells. It takes the waste out of those, any toxins. It can move white blood cells. And it's basically a cleaning fluid of the body. It takes the waste out. Hopefully new clean fluid is moved back in. Well, one of the issues is when that lymphatic system moves down to the lower body, fluid can build up. And that is because the pumps from the lower body are not working as well as they should. So lymph is typically how it circulates up and down on a one-way street, right? So it doesn't come back up the same way it goes down. And so what happens is as it's starting to come back up, it's getting stuck. It's getting lodged in typically inflamed fascia, which we're going to talk about that next, connective tissue. And there may be blockages even based on sitting, crossing your legs for years at a time, meaning like locking up the hip flexors and allowing the fluid from your legs, including the blood, to flow back up. It can be actually lack of exercise or just walking in general, sitting too much during the day, because you need to pump the ankles in order for the gastroc, that's the muscle, gastrocnemius, in the calf to move fluid back up to your heart. Really important. That's why walking 7,500 to 10,000 steps a day is just great for everything, literally everything from overall hormones and lymphatic system, immune system, turning off fight or flight, to longevity. Okay, so the lymphatic system needs to be worked on. We'll talk about that in just a moment, how to do it. I'm just getting through the underlying root causes. The next one is chronic inflammation. Yes, chronic inflammation can lead to these connective tissue-based disorders. It can lead to higher levels of estrogen production. It can lead to more fluid buildup, and you can end up with fibrotic-based tissue as well. So we need to work on that inflammation. Yes, omega-3s are very important, but balancing overall nutrients in the body, very important too. Getting rid of those seed oils, getting rid of a lot of the inflammatory foods in our diet, a lot of the energy drinks, artificial colors, all those things, let's get them out of the diet. And of course, what we're exposed to in the environment, such as mold and the mycotoxins from molds, and many other issues with the environment, of course, such as phthalates, parabens, glyphosate, etc. All right, number 4 is this, and then we'll start to move into what do we do, right? So it's connective tissue weakness. This isn't structural, meaning like your muscles and bones and ligaments are still in the same place, most likely. Maybe poor posture is kind of set in through the years. It happens as we get older. We get weaker and weaker typically every year if we're not focused on core strength and working our upper and lower body. But what happens is the structural tissue, so the connective tissue, the fascia that surrounds the muscles, that actually kind of keeps everything in place, that can be dysfunctional. And so it's not just fat, it's actually the adipose tissue, the fat underneath it, that can start to then move through this fibrotic-based connective tissue. And then we start to get more lumpy looking skin. And when it's inflamed, it becomes more hot and tender. Okay, so those are the main underlying root causes. So now what do? Well, the first one is we really need to dial in our anti-inflammatory nutrition. So brightly colored fruits and vegetables we need to focus on because they are antioxidants. Then we need to move in those high omega-3 foods, and ideally taking 2 grams of a good daily omega-3 nutritional supplement so that you work on reducing your inflammatory cytokines and eicosanoids inside of the body. You don't need to know what all of that means. 2 grams a day is going to be dramatically helpful with that. And I would also say add in 30 to 40 grams of fiber per day. If you're not used to getting that much fiber, ease into it over a series of weeks. And if you got bloating or gas from fiber and eating all these good foods for you, run the Candida metabolic and vitamins test to see if you have yeast overgrowth or some type of bacterial overgrowth, because if you do, all the good foods are going to feed that, and we want to eliminate and rebalance the gut first. Remember, good long-term plan. Then that's how we help clients get rid of this for life. Okay, but then get in the fiber to pull the estrogen out of the body, to sweep the intestines clean. That's what fiber does. That's why it's so important for the heart, blood pressure, and diabetes. All right, the next one I want you to do is lymphatic movement. I would love you to do a sauna 3 to 5 times a week and dry brush when you first get in the sauna when you're not too sweaty. And we don't need to make dry brushing complicated. you take your dry brush and you brush from your wrist down to your armpits, towards your heart, and your ankles up to your groin. That is the basis of it. You do basically 3 times in the same spot and go. Now, I have many shows on lymphatic drainage. I can link those up for you, but you really just want to move that lymphatic system. So if you want to get more complicated, move from the knee to the groin first, and then the ankle all the way up to the groin, because you move the lymph above it first, then you go a little bit below. These are all things we learned in Ayurvedic medicine and all of my internships overseas. But honestly, even if you're doing it just straight from ankle to groin, and over time, you're going to get the benefits. So then the sauna helps you sweat out a lot of these toxins, whether it be heavy metals, mold, mycotoxins, etc. So really important. If you don't have access to a sauna, that's okay. You can dry brush, and then you can jump up a little bit and down on a trampoline or rebounder if you'd like. And if you don't have any of those things, just get a little bit of sesame oil and literally do the same thing with sesame oil. Move from the ankle up to the groin, from the wrist down to the armpit, move that lymph. And you don't want to press too hard. You actually want to only compress it about a couple millimeters. That's it. If you press too hard, you actually block off the lymphatic system. So that's why manual lymph drainage massage is actually very light. People underestimate it. They think they're going to get like a deep massage. No, it's actually very gentle, very light. That's how you move the lymph. All right. If you want to get a little bit more fancy with that, you can actually wear compression leggings. The compression leggings, like what is it? Why is it the name escaping me? Nordic, something like that. It basically will just move. I used to use them back in the day. I don't use them anymore. It just moves the lymphatic system from the legs, and it moves the lymph back up to the upper body. You could also just sit near close to a wall, put your legs up on the wall. Talked about that many times. That's a great one. Talk about that in my new book, Personomics, as well. Just let that lymph flow. All right, number 4 is this: targeted exercise, namely strength training. Okay, why strength training? 1, we want to improve the lymphatic system. We also want to improve the structural tone of the fascia. So when you exercise and with strength train with weights in a full range of motion, you actually stretch that fascia, which is really important. Don't overstretch if you're very tight, but get back into a good position. And it'll be extremely important for your squats, your deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, lunges, and step-ups. Use a full range of motion, body weight at first, totally fine, 10 to 15 repetitions. Then you can start to add a little bit of weight safely. All right, so that's a great way to do it. And then for bonus points, little foam rolling on the lower body after the workout to help elongate the fascia as well. Again, fascia is just basically a spider web covering all of the muscle and the other tissue inside of the body. All right, the next one is this: hormonal support. After you run your stress, mood, and metabolism test, you might use something called estrogen support. Sorry, estrogen balance. Apologies, estrogen balance. Estrogen balance contains diindolylmethane as well as I3C. So why are those important? DIM and I3C. Indole 3 carbonyl, I think it's indole 3 carbonyl, I3C. And why those are important is that will help move excess estrogen out of the body. And it's usually not too little estrogen, it's too much estrogen or estrogen dominance that is initially causing this. Okay, so estrogen balance is a great one to take, 1 or 2 capsules a day. Great. It's basically an extract from broccoli and cauliflower, and that's what's contained in it. Really great for moving it out of the body. So that's a big one. And then if you haven't done and have not been doing the Equal Life Functional Medicine Detox every 12 weeks, you want to do that because you want to open up your liver and detox drainage pathways. So that's a must. Hopefully you're just doing that in general for health, but that's a great place to start. You can find that at stephencabral.com/detox. And again, if you don't want to use Equal Life or you can't find Equal Life, totally fine. Just see exactly what it is and mimic that, right? Do something very similar to it. All right, and then the last one is this. I'm not going to give you a lot of nutritional supplements. I talked about the estrogen balance. I keep estrogen balance. Yes, estrogen support is when you need more estrogen, you take estrogen support, which has the herbs to help produce more estrogen. Okay, so the next one though, I don't want to do a lot, but every human should be using the daily nutritional support or the daily activated multi. Like that is without a doubt. I've got so many podcasts on literally how it reduces your biological age and rate of aging, and you're going to have more energy, better mood, all of the things, right? Okay, so there's that. There's the omega-3s, just 2 grams a day. And then there's vitamin D3 at 5,000 IUs a day. Those are the 3. Like those are literally the 3. Then you can add on after that. And you'll adjust your dosage if you run the omega-3 inflammation test, up or down if you need to. Most people won't. And then your vitamin D3, whenever you run your 25-hydroxy vitamin D3, it's also on your stress, mood, and metabolism test. You'll know your vitamin D levels. And if it's between a 50 and call it a 75-80, you're perfect, right? And most people are at 5,000 IUs per day. Plus, there's a little bit more in your daily activated multi or daily nutritional support. All right, so those are table stakes. That's what every human should be doing. I literally try to just spread that, spread the word. Every single human. There's no better 3 supplements in the world. I've been doing this now for 26 full-time years, and then a couple more part-time years while I was in undergrad and college. Again, you can use any company in the world you want, so I don't have a dog in the fight because you can please use any company that you want that's third-party tested, functional medicine branded, but we should all be using those. Okay, now specifically for inflammation, if you wanted to use one other product, it would be called Inflammasoothe. That has curcumin, it has boswellia, which is Indian frankincense, also called Apriflex, ginger, turmeric, Apriflex, which is the boswellia. It then also has purple sweet potato extract, so many great things in that. That is amazing. And then if I could give you one more, it would be the proteolytic enzymes, not just for the nattokinase in there, but also the serrapeptase, which helps with connective tissue and inflammation. So even though we're all talking about nattokinase because of the amazing studies, you also want to be using a product that has serrapeptase. And you can find all of these at our clinical website where we ship to 27 countries around the world, helping hundreds of thousands of people. We literally just had our 1 millionth customer order, which is like so amazing that the team has put this together because they're so amazing. They really are the Equal Life team. But again, choose your favorite company, no problem at all. And we just open source. Like you can see on the back the ingredients we use. So if you want to go with another company, that's, feel free to do so. Or maybe you're overseas to a country that we don't ship to, and you can certainly look at that as well. All right, so that is everything from head to toe. There's more that you could use. You could use advanced collagen support. I mean, we already talked about the estrogen balance as well, but you don't want to go overboard because you also want to be able to control your variables. And there is no one silver bullet. When you look at something like lipedema, you actually want to look at it from a multi-pronged approach. And that is why we're able to help our clients over time reverse lipedema and get them back the body that they've always been wanting or looking for. And truthfully, that's just an amazing thing that we love what we do. We love being able to go to work to help people. And that's what we're focused on every single day. This topic came up from a reader question. If you have one as well, you can always submit it at cabralsupportgroup.com or just write in at stephencabral.com/askcabral. Take care, everybody. For all the details, head on over to stephencabral.com/3750. And of course, share the show with anyone you believe it could serve.